Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So before I get into this video, I just want to say I send out my condolences to the families who lost loved ones in this horrible tragedy in DC. You all are familiar with that airplane accident that occurred. Dozens of people have lost their lives and they're still in the process of recovering the bodies. And this morning when I left for work, they said that basically that this is no longer a rescue operation, it's a recovery operation. So this is a sad day and time for this country. So my heart goes out to the families. And the thing that's sad, aside from the tragedy, and it's very disturbing, is the fact that you have this president in the White House who basically used this horrible tragedy as a political football to bash Joe Biden, to bash Obama, and to basically blame DEI for this horrible tragedy, basically suggesting that this tragedy is a result of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, basically suggesting that this tragedy is a result of unqualified people that were hired under some DEI program. He's basically blaming it on that. And he kept stressing the need to have intelligent, brilliant people in aviation. And he was kind of suggesting that the people there were just appointed under a DEI program and they didn't have the intelligence, they didn't have the skills, and that's why this tragedy happened. The fact of the matter is no investigation has taken place. They are in the very beginning phases of an investigation, but yet and still Donald Trump gets out here before an investigation is conducted. He wants to blame diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives for this tragedy. Basically, he's blaming minorities. He's basically saying that some unqualified minorities were put in position and that's why this accident happened, without zero proof whatsoever to back this up. Promoting this false narrative that DEI is about just putting people in position just based on the color of their skin and not based on their qualifications, not based on their experiences. And that's one of the biggest lies being put out here. And the thing that makes this even worse is that in addition to just attacking DEI, he's basically attacking minorities with this type of commentary. He's basically scapegoating Black people and other so-called minorities and people of color. And this kind of rhetoric is very dangerous. When you blame minorities, and that's basically what he's doing, when you blame minorities for things like this, all that does is build animus and hatred towards minorities in the larger white population. And we know that this happened. And as I was listening to him basically blame minorities and blame DEI for this horrible tragedy, all I could think about was the fact that all that's going to do is anger people and make people want to lash out. And when people are angry, when they are looking for someone to blame, often the scapegoat ends up being attacked, ends up being victims of violence. And we saw this, at various times where an entire group of people have been blamed for things that have happened, and we've seen a violent reaction to that. And I fear for that type of situation in America, given this rhetoric that this man has put out. And this will not be the first time that he has created a climate of hate and a climate of violence based on his irresponsible rhetoric. We saw this after him talking about how the Haitian immigrants were eating the cats and the dogs and the pets After that, people were afraid to take their kids to school because there were threats against Haitian people. Haitians were afraid to send their kids to school. And these are legal immigrants. Let's remember that. But because of the climate that he created, people were fearful of taking their kids, bringing their kids to school. So, this is just a horrible situation. And the fact of the matter is, while he's pointing the finger at DEI and at minorities and at Joe Biden and Barack Obama, fingers are pointed back at him because right before this tragedy, this man decided to gut a major aviation committee that was responsible for advising on safety matters and dealing with safety issues in aviation. And shortly after that, we had this horrible tragedy. So instead of blaming people, Donald Trump should have talked about unifying the country. He should have been expressing his concern for all the people that lost their lives. He should have been emphasizing the need for a thorough investigation instead of jumping to unsubstantiated conclusions. But this is a sign of what's to come in this White House. And I'm going to keep following, developments as they are revealed around this horrible tragedy. I plan to discuss it further. And I also plan to talk about Donald Trump and these measures that he's taken to roll back our civil rights and our civil liberties. And I plan to go live tomorrow at 11 p.m. So that'll be your chance to join me in a discussion. And I may bring some people on live to talk about this Trump administration because it's been an utter disaster. And this is like an omen for things to come, unfortunately.